Now, back in March of 2014, I started talking about how Mitt Romney was going to get in the race. Some people might have thought that that was premature. Oh, there goes Cenk with his predictions and such. But here's what I said all the way back then. So Mitt Romney thinks, oh my God, the field is open. Yeah, there'll be the Rand Pauls and there'll be the social conservatives, etc. But the establishment needs a candidate. And Mitt Romney going on TV there and attacking Hillary Clinton is basically raising his hand going, don't forget me. They're talking about Jeb Bush. That's pretty desperate. And in those times, Mitt Romney thinks, well, if you're that desperate, I got a great candidate for you. A guy who's been desperate all along. So, all of a sudden, he's back. On Friday, pretty much announcing that he will run. So, Politico with a giant story about him. First of all, they say in meetings with and individual calls to donors, supporters, and former staffers, Romney is making it clear that he is likely to run, putting his time frame for a decision at weeks, not months. Now, this article is obsessed throughout about talk of donors. Donors, what are the donors going to do? And why is Mitt Romney rushing in when the primaries are quite some time away? Because there's a gold rush for the donors. And you got to grab them up before the other candidates do. We'll get back to that part of the story in a second. But hey, Mitt, what are you going to do differently than you did the last two times when you lost? Well, the former Massachusetts governor, Politico explains, also says he'll have a different communication staff and hopes to show voters a version of himself they didn't get to see last time. I love these politicians and how they talk about all the different versions of themselves. I would have been nice to see that version the first time around, but I like this. No. The third Mitt is the best Mitt of all. Oh, I see how sincere you're being. I bet that sincerity will come through to the voters. That'll work. Give me that version of Mitt. Now, more of this. Robert O'Brien, who's a GOP donor, says, if he decides to run, I think you'll see a different campaign, and I think you'll see a campaign in which the American people get to really know Mitt Romney as a person. Come on, dude. Look, we know who Mitt Romney is. He was a private equity guy who made a ton of money by sometimes helping companies and sometimes ripping them to shreds and pocketing the money anyway, right? And he's the guy who hid his money offshore. He's the guy who said, corporations are people, my friend. We know who Mitt Romney is. That's his problem. That's not the solution. That's the problem for Mitt Romney. How many more times do we have to get to know him? And the whole idea is, oh, new communication staff. If we just communicate it to you in a different way, we'll be able to trick you better. And good luck with that. Now, more along those lines, but another alumnus of Romney's presidential campaign said a new effort would tell the story of Mitt better. Oh, for Christ's sake. Several Romney veterans recalled how well the accounts from parishioners in Romney's Mormon community resonated with voters who had been bombarded with ads about his tenure at Bain Capital. Oh, so it turns out some of the Mormon parishioners in his own community like him. Oh, why didn't you tell us that before? Okay, well, if some of his friends and neighbors and fellow Mormon parishioners like him, well, then obviously the rest of us are going to like him too, right? Now, one of the pieces of evidence, I mean, it's absurd to call it that they use is the movie on Netflix, Mitt. It's a documentary about Mitt Romney. I had the great misfortune of watching that, and I talked about it on the show back when I did. It is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. It is unadulterated propaganda. I mean, Mitt Romney hugs more people in that so-called movie than all the other movies that it hugs in all the movies of that year combined, okay? Everything's like, oh, Mitt, you're so great. Oh, God, man. Oh, these unfair attacks against you. What are you going to do? These are the behind the scenes. They're like, oh, his handlers were nervous about giving access to those filmmakers for that film. It's just an entire fluff piece about how awesome Mitt Romney is. That's not evidence, okay? That's the same Mormon parishioners who are saying, oh, we love it. He's giving us 10% of his earnings. So we're on his side. Of course you are. All right, so now we turn to what will be the focus of your campaign? So last time you centered on helping rich people. What's your idea this time around? He's going to go in the other direction. Really? Besides a focus on helping the poor, Politico explains. Focus on helping the poor. All right. The other two pillars he's told people he would build a new campaign around are supporting the middle class and a muscular foreign policy. He's like, okay, the foreign policy part I get, right? Remember he said that our Navy was smaller than it was back in like 1917 or something? Yeah, dude, we have different kinds of ships now. Okay. Or 1817. I mean, he made some absurd claim. Yes, those ships were wooden back in the 1800s. Anyway, so you're going to focus on the poor and the middle class. The lesson they learned was, oh, there's not enough rich people in the country. Why didn't we think of that earlier, dog? Okay, yeah, I meant the poor and the middle class. Yeah, that's who I'm going to focus on. Very believable. Now, that's what he says now as he's about to run again for president. Now, that's not what he was saying a couple of weeks after he had lost the election to President Obama. This is what he had said at the time. Within 2 weeks of the loss, Romney bluntly told a large number of donors, here we go again with the donors, on a conference call that Obama unfairly put his thumb on the scale with policy, quote, gifts to key constituencies, especially the African-American community, the Hispanic community, and young people. Okay, so all that talk about helping other people, not so much, right? I mean, if you're poor and middle class and you're white, maybe I'll remember you. The other things, I'm not going to give you gifts like Obama. That was the problem. No, but this is so ironic because the whole Republican Party is based on giving gifts to their donors, like tax cuts, deregulation, etc. So what do? They project. They go, oh, yeah, look at the gifts that the Democrats are giving people who need things, like who need a hand up, who need a little bit of assistance, instead of you guys who give all the gifts to the richest people in the country. And by the way, what effing gifts have African Americans gotten from President Obama? Oh, yeah. African Americans have been showered with luxuries and wealth since Obama came into office, right? What's your evidence for that? What? Which one? What did they get? Actually, their average wealth has plummeted, okay? So that's actually a solid criticism of President Obama, that he didn't do nearly enough for those communities. Not that he did too much for them. Okay, but of course, if you help any of those communities, even a scintilla, for the Romneys of the world, it is far, far too much. That is money better spent on his rich friends. But he explains, how are you going to help the poor and the middle class? There will be more focus on mobility and softer economic issues. There will also probably be more on upward mobility and opportunity. In other words, well, I'm not really going to help you, but don't worry, you too can be rich one day. Idiot, that was the theme of your campaign last time. I'm super rich, I represent the super rich, but one day, if you listen to me, it'll trickle all over your head, and then you'll be rich too. I saw that movie. That movie was worse than the Netflix documentary called Mitt. Okay. By the way, it's a documentary on Netflix, to be fair. Okay. All right. Now, we get to the donors. You already heard a couple of references, but here's what's peppered throughout the article. And I give you this so you get a sense of the assumptions here built into the system and why they don't go to serve the middle class and the poor and the large percentage of Americans that they should be serving if they were actually running for president and cared more about the voters than they do about the donors. Well, here's why. They explain here, yet even that failed effort was meticulously prepared for by Romney, referring to the earlier efforts, with years of tending to donors' neurosis and staffers' concerns. See the mindset? First thing you gotta do is take care of the donors. You have to even attend to their neurosis, like, oh, how's your psychology going? Are you okay, dog? Let me help you out. What do you need? Little hand love, little something, whatever you need, okay? I'm here to soothe you, a little massage. What do you need? Voters, the poor, the middle, I forgot about you in the last two campaigns. Okay, donors, oh my God, give me a hug, give me a hug. I'm good at hugs. Robert O'Brien, a California-based Republican donor, the guy we quoted earlier, who was recently courted by Texas Senator Ted Cruz, but who decided to wait to see where Romney stands. This is part of an article. They're explaining how the process works. You see what's happening here? All the Republican candidates, behind the scenes, you're not seeing any of this, right? You'll see it in little pieces of an article that have nothing to do with it, talking about how Mitt Romney's coming back, and they have to talk about his strategy. The strategy of all these guys is find all the billionaires in the country, find all the really rich people in the country, and see who can service them quicker and better. So Ted Cruz gets to Robert O'Brien. He's like, oh, I got you, dog. I got you. What do you need? What do you need? I got my knee pads. What do you need? Right? And he's like, no, hold up. I'm saving myself for Romney. And so now, throughout the article, there's talk about how Jeb Bush and Romney are appealing to the same donors who's going to, get them off first. So here's one example of that. Bush and Romney already are calling many of the same donors and operatives, in some cases within hours of each other, to make their pitch, round up support, and lay claim to staff. See, this is the real campaign behind the scenes. All that other stuff that you see later, and then they'll talk about the gaffes and what did he say at a donut shop and blah, blah, blah. Look, when it gets to the final election, there is so much attention paid to both candidates that the money becomes less relevant because there's so much free media, right? You're in the news all day, every day, right? But in the beginning, when you desperately need the media attention, how do you get it? You do paid media. That's money in politics. The money in politics comes in through these rich donors, and the Romneys and the Bushes and the Ted Cruzes of the world, who are Ted Cruz is breathing fire. Oh, I'm going to populist. I'm going to stand up for the little guy. Mitt Romney now claiming that he's going to do a campaign to help the poor, the middle class. What are they doing? They all have their knee pads, and they got them spiffed up, and they're ready to go. And they're sliding in on their knees to the mansions of the rich, going, I'm here, please take me first. This is what our democracy has devolved to. That's why you got to get money out of politics. I mean, getting Mitt Romney out of politics was a good start, but he's back. That's why you got to turn off the faucet. Wolf-pack.com. Okay, before I'm done, though, I like these last two quotes. He believes the 2016 campaign would be organized from the start with a general election victory in mind. Okay, I like this dude. He's so, I mean, there's a part of him that I oddly respect. He's so tenacious. He's so driven. He's like, I win, I'm a winner. Oh, I lost in 2008, I'm coming in 2012. I got killed in 2012, I'm coming even harder in 2016. Right? But he's also deluded. He thinks, oh, the primaries. I already got that. I figured that out. Okay, now let's go towards the general election. Anytime anybody has that attitude in politics, they're done for. So, I like predictions. We started with a prediction. I'll end with a prediction here. Mitt Romney is not going to be the Republican candidate. If he thinks he can slide on by in the Republican primary, a primary full of vicious piranhas, he's got another thought coming to him, man. This is not going to be patty cakes, my friend. The Ted Cruzes, the Rand Pauls of the world, etc., are going to come with lead pipes and blowtorches. You think you just mosey on into the general election because you were there before? You don't know anything about American politics. It's incredible how deluded these people are, which leads me to my final quote from Politico. They quote Romney supporter Tom Rath. The context of this campaign will be very different than the one we ran last time. There's not going to be a lot of surprises to him. Wrong again, Tom. The big surprise coming to Mitt Romney is going to be that he is going to be humiliated. You know what Republicans don't like? The Republican voters. They don't like losers. Now, Democrats, well, that's a different question. They can stomach a lot of losing because they've gotten used to it. The Republicans, you like them, you don't like them, that's a different issue, okay? But they don't like you to guy who's already proven to be a loser twice over coming and going, yes, I will now be your candidate. Everybody step aside, please. My guess is you're going to step aside. So he thinks he's in good shape because he's leading in the polls now? Don't you understand anything about politics? That's name recognition. That's because you were the candidate last time. The minute the actual nitty-gritty of the campaign starts, you're not going to be leading. And then you're going to drop out when you're in third or fourth or fifth place. And then you're going to make excuses about how your wife has a bum ankle and you need to go tend to her and your family's more important than other people. And yeah, you didn't mean it in the first place. You were just trying to help others. I got it all written out for you. If you want, come, I'll give you your concession speech. You're done, son. This is going to be a wonderfully embarrassing and humiliating run for Mitt Romney. By the way, it doesn't really matter. Mitt Romney, Chris Christie, Ted Cruz, you think they're all different parts of the Republican Party? No. They're all the same guys. They all serve the same bosses, the same donors that they are desperate to please right now. Wolf-pack.com solves all of that. And even if you're a Republican, In fact, if you're a Republican, you should want it more than anything. You should want a real populist. You should want a real conservative, and not these guys who are pretending to be one just to make their donors happy.